Welcome back to Kerbal Space Program. Where we left off, we had just launched our lander for Laythe. So now we need to launch another Talos X. This one is going to have, you notice we only have one crew member. We're going to launch it with 2 empty crew slots. One to pick up our crew member who's landing on Laythe, and a second empty slot to pick up the crew member who is going to be landing on Tilo. So we're going to leave it there after we pick up our crew from Laythe. So let's get going without any further ado. Now the landing on Laythe can be a little weird because you've got atmospheric drag that makes precision landing a little difficult. So we may have to F5, F9 that a couple of times just to get the landing trajectory right so that we don't have to, send 10 frickin' missions. The ascent is very tricky. The design I'm sending should be able to do it no problem. But the ascent is very tricky because of the atmosphere. And I'm pretty sure I discussed that a little bit in the previous episode. So it's been a while since I've done that, so it'll be interesting to see if we run into any nonsense. I don't think we will, but in either case. So we're launching our Talos X. I'm reusing exactly the same design as I did before. The booster may even look a little familiar. Pretty basic stuff. Trying to get our ascent profile here working out good. Excuse me. And it occurs to me that I haven't even looked at the position of Jewel. So we may have to do some time warping again. Excuse me. We may have to do some time warping again in order to get Jewel into a good position for the intercept. Now, one thing I want to point out, I know that you can do your injection burns, your transfer burns, directly from Kerbal orbit. And technically it consumes a little bit less delta V to do it that way sometimes. But I don't bother just because, you've seen the way I do transfers. It's easy to plot. Whereas doing it from Kerbal orbit, planning out the maneuver nodes and stuff, it takes a little bit more patience. It takes a little bit longer than I'm willing to bother with. Than I'm willing to bother with for, an episodic career like this, making episodes. Just getting that out of the way, because we don't need to take that with us. Alright, we'll circularize this orbit. I hope. I think I ran into some issues with this before, where the thrust was a little low. Yeah, this may actually turn into a little bit of an issue. No, I'm good. My apps is still going up. Got a good angle. We're fine. Alright, and just for good measure, we'll time warp it around to the other side. Speed it up a little bit. just to make our turn a little bit quicker. And all we're doing there, we're just pushing our absent parry out. Okay. All right. So let's see where Jewel is. I should be able to make that work. Alright, so let's zip around to the back again. Alright, me get out of Kerbin's sphere of influence. Yeah, and again, we've got, look at that, 22,000 delta V. We're doing just fine. I mean, our thrust to weight ratio from here on out is extremely low, but our efficiency is very high. I mean, with this much delta V, we can get out to like Elu on the far end of its orbit and back. So we're doing relatively good. Those ion engines really deliver. And asparagus staged xenon is kind of OP. But the Laythe landing mission, that's gonna be a mess, because that's an enormous rocket. Maneuvering it's gonna be a little tough. And I really, if memory serves, I really need to get it into a good equatorial-ish orbit around Laythe. Because the point where we need to land, the little Easter egg we're going to be landing on, coincidentally for us, is almost directly on the equator. So that works out very convenient. It makes the landing and ascent and everything extremely simple. At least more simple than it could be. But of course, there's the added difficulty of trying to predict like your rate of deceleration and everything for the aero braking when you go in with your heat shield and all of that, and the parachutes. As we saw on Duna, precision landing in an atmosphere can be a little tough. So we'll do what we can when we get there. But for now, I just want to escape Kerbin here. Alright, and now we need to do that with our Laythe lander. It's going to be a very similar idea. We're just going to push out. Oh, that's right. We've still got a tiny bit of fuel left down in our first stage. That actually works out really conveniently. Man, it's a chunky rocket. With a really good thrust-to-weight ratio when it's low on fuel. Alright, yeah, now the Rhino here's relatively efficient. Should be able to get us a good chunk of the way to Jewel without a whole lot of fuss, I think. But we'll find out in a minute. Whoa, what was that? Did I just have a surprise intersect of the moon? Oh boy. All right, that wasted a huge chunk of fuel. All right, let's try this again. All right, and we're going to switch to Talos X just to make sure it doesn't get pulled back into Kerbin's sphere of influence. Yep, get out of Dodge. And now the Laythe lander. Switch over to this and do the same thing. Okay. Yeah, I don't think... this actually ends up being a really bad spot for Jewel. Worse than I expected. Yeah, see, look at that. There's no way to... We're going to have to do some rather excessive time warping in order to get ourselves to an intercept. So let's do some Kraken insurance. Why did my... Did I slip back into Kerbin? Okay. My time warp decelerated there for a moment. I wasn't really too sure why. Alright, so I am going to do some Kraken insurance, and I'm going to fast forward through this this bit of time warp, because it's probably going to take a good 10 minutes for Jewel to get around where I need it to get. Alright, so now I'm going to check and see what an intercept might look like from here, or if I'm going to have to go around another year. Oh, look at that! Excellent. Okay. That works out very well. Very convenient. Alright, so what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get this burn out in that general direction, and then I'll tweak it a little bit. I'll get the Laythe lander on its way. Then I'll worry about the Talos X. And that's going to be a much larger burn. I'll probably clip it. Much longer burn that I'll probably clip just to save a little bit of time. But the Laythe lander here, this one's going to be actually a little bit more interesting, because I've got this like weird multiple asparagus nuclear thing going. And I've still got half a tank left working for the Rhino. So that'll be fun. And of course, after I get my intercept set up, I'm going to spend probably a significant amount of time tweaking some maneuver nodes to try and get this to be like a relatively equatorial kind of an intercept. Oh boy, look at that. That's actually way up ahead. I might have to... Ooh. Alright, well, that's... Good thing we got lots of extra Delta V. I didn't expect the Talos X to get so far ahead on the orbit. It's fine, though. It's fine. Lots of extra Delta V on that guy. Alright, and we are going to run out of Delta V on this stage long before we get our intercept. Perfect. Alright, now how did I have the staging for these set? Okay, that's what I thought. These outer ones are going to drain first. Yeah, that's giving us a significant amount of Delta V. Just this stage, before I jettison these outer engines, I've got another 1200 Delta V. That'll get us most of the way there. So that is working out pretty good. It's working out. Yeah, and as I've mentioned many times, I'm a huge fan of doing all this weird, clustered asparagus stuff. Not only, can it give you some efficiency, it just makes for a little bit more of an interesting rocket design, at least in my opinion. Ah, my beautiful Laythe lander. Just glad I remembered the solar panels and stuff. Yeah, this burn takes a while. And we're still at 4x time warp. And you can see it's going pretty slow. But we're just about getting ready to do our staging here. And we'll see if this actually worked the way I hoped it would. Now, there was another option, right? To have these side tanks fill into the center, or the tanks with the engines fill into the center. Beautiful. And then have these tanks feed into, all the ones with the engines. You get a little bit better thrust doing it that way, but it is slightly less efficient, so I didn't bother. Oh man, look at that. Yeah, this is going to take quite a while. So I think I'm actually going to clip here, just to save, another 12 minutes of this burn, and who knows how long on that second one. So I will be back in just a minute. Okay, so I'm back for a moment. I want to kind of demonstrate something that I'm doing here. So I've already got Talos X on a good intercept. So here I'm on my Laythe lander, right? You can see here I've got my intersect all planned out. What I'm doing is I've focused my camera on Jewel, and I set Laythe as my target. So now I'm manually playing around with a burn here to get my periapsis in a bit deeper and get myself, intersected with Jewel when I enter its sphere of influence, so that I'll be a bit better off. And I'm going to be playing around. Quite a bit with the maneuver node. since I'm going to be able to kind of get the camera like this and see exactly what sort of adjustments are going to be needed to get myself on what kind of a trajectory. And this process, I mean, it looks like, you know, I'm going pretty quick there, but this can actually take quite a while. So I'm going to cut here, but getting an intercept the way I want it, so that I'm going to be in a good position to break into Laythe, is going to be a lot of trial and error on this. But I just wanted to take a quick second to demonstrate how this process works, even though it's going to take a little while and be pretty tedious. All right, so again, I'll be back in a minute. Okay, so we've got our Talos X into orbit around Jool. That actually ended up being a lot less efficient than last time. I did my insertion burn far too late into the orbit, so I had to spend a lot of delta V correcting that. It's still fine though. We got tons. I didn't do like an aero break or anything, because after the way that the last mission turned out, I know that Talos X is overbuilt. It has a surplus amount of delta V. To be honest, I just didn't care enough to try and make that more efficient, because it just would have taken too long. I'd rather just spend a little bit of time warping through a less efficient burn. So for the Laythe lander, though, where conserving delta V actually was very much important, this is the intersect I got, which is not bad. So we're gonna skip ahead here. Now it is gonna consume a real heavy amount of delta V to get ourselves into a good orbit around Laythe. And I will admit, I'm a little worried about that. But we'll see what happens. That's kind of the problem with Laythe and Tilo, is that you need such enormous landers in order to, you know, do these missions. In Tilo's case, in order to take off and get into orbit, and in Laythe's case, in order to actually like land correctly and get back up. Or I'm sorry, in Tilo's case, in order to land correctly, and you'll see that, and in Laythe's case, in order to get back up correctly. So you need these ridiculous amounts of delta V in your trans stages. And, you know, just it's personal preference. I mean, I've seen other people, and I have in the past when I was new to KSP, just use huge asparagus tanks with mainsail engines, just huge, super tall, super long and wobbly rockets, with lots of non-asparagus mainsail and skipper trans stages and stuff like that. And I've even seen people use like solid rocket boosters as trans stages, you know, for some of these heavier missions, or just go absolutely off the wall with their boosters. I try not to get super crazy, you know, as you've seen with like how I design some of my boosters and stuff. When it comes time to launch the mission to Eve, that one's gonna be crazy. And I'm gonna do that one last because it's the craziest. Even going out to Elu and Moho are not gonna require as much in the way of crazy Kerbalized boosters as the mission to land and plant the flag on Eve. So that's going to be a bit of a mess when it comes time for that. That's going to be a really wide Kerbalized booster. It's probably going to cost like millions and millions of funds. with all these like ridiculous 3.75 meter liquid fuel boosters strapped on the side, boosters and more boosters, and spiderweb networks of struts. It's going to take like an hour to build. So that'll be a good Kerbal monstrosity. And there's there's really no other way to do it. At least with my style. I'm aware that you can do like aircraft to Eve, but I'll be honest. I'm just not good at at building single stage to orbit aircraft, especially for Eve. For whatever reason, even like copying designs that other people use. I'm pretty sure it's probably just like my flight profiles and stuff. The whole single stage to orbit thing just never works out very well for me. So I don't use that method with Eve. I actually land a conventional booster, a conventional like capsule and takeoff rocket, kind of similar to what I'm doing on Laythe. And I think you'll actually be surprised at how small it turns out to be. Realizing that we're speaking in relatives here, right? But it does actually turn out to be kind of small, compared to what it might otherwise be. But I think I'm gonna fast forward a little bit through these burns down into Laythe. Because we just gotta literally, we just gotta bring our apps down quite a bit. Just burn through a few minutes of this. So I'll see you in a minute. Alright, so we've got a maneuver node with Laythe here. And we're going to be cutting it a little close on the Delta V. I think we should probably still have enough. But we're going to be cutting it closer than I would prefer. Now I just got to hope that we come in on the right side of the planet here. And I may, you'll forgive me if I F5, F9. I may reload if I come in on the wrong side of the planet. It's like with my ascending and descending nodes. I am massively dyslexic about which side of the planet I need to come in on. I'm actually going to take this encounter instead. Yeah, this is a little smoother. This should require... did I screw that up? I think I might have. You know what, let me just save here. I'll skip ahead. We'll see how bad it is. Alright, so yeah, this is going to be like an impact trajectory, and I don't want that. Alright. We're going to be cutting it close. Going to be cutting it real close on our Delta V budget. But not a lot of choice. We made some errors. That's okay. Yeah, and see, there's our landing spot is almost right on. Oops, almost right on the equator. Yeah, we're gonna be cutting it close on Delta V. I'll admit I'm a little worried. But our next stage, I think we've got at least like 1300 Delta V in that. And the good news is, after we circularize, it doesn't take much to go down to descend. Just trying to carefully monitor the inclination here. And I just want to burn this until I get my periapsis up to about 100K. Okay. Yeah, about 1200 Delta V in this stage. And our weight is a lot lower, or our thrust to weight ratio is a lot better now. So that's not bad. Now I want to bring the apoapsis down again to around like a 100K or so on the light side, because I am going to want to, when it comes time, I am going to want to land on the light side of Laythe. Now, one thing I do want to do is I'm going to spend a tiny little bit of Delta V put me in physics warp. I'm going to spend a tiny little bit of Delta V just to try and correct our inclination. All right, now let me... Alright, that looks pretty good. Okay. Alright, so now the fun begins. Alright, let me do some Kraken insurance. So now... Whoop, that went a little quicker than I thought. Now we want to zip until our landing zone is on the light side and we are not in Jewel's shadow. Alright, so this is about... Yeah, and you can see it's like right on the equator, so that's good. So let me play around with this here. Sometimes the camera manipulation camera manipulation ends up being like the worst enemy. Alright. So I'm going to save here, and I'm going to do a descent burn. Now, please forgive me, I may end up reloading and doing this descent a couple of times. But I want to show you... Alright, let's start off with... start off with 16,000. Now you can see through the clouds... There's this strip of land. But where we need to actually land is near like a lake and some mountains and a beach. You know, it's a very narrow sort of a place to come down. So what'll end up happening is we have to come in here, we have to orient the heat shield to... you know, align properly. Now let's do that right now even. To align properly with our entry angle. And hope for the best. Because it's really difficult, and I have never found a reliable way. It is really difficult to estimate how your trajectory is going to change from this sort of a re-entry aero brake. So if this doesn't turn out quite how I wanted, I'll reload the save, and it's literally just going to be a little bit of trial and error. So please forgive me for this small bit of cheating. Alright, yeah, see there, our descent angle was way too shallow. So we're coming in way too shallow. So I'm gonna reload that. And what I'm gonna do is, this may take quite a while. So I'm gonna clip it here and do what I can to do a little bit of a precision landing, and I'll get back in to the footage once I get the precision landing nailed. All right, I'll be back in a minute. All right, I think this is about the 12th try. So what I've been doing, and I'm not sure why it keeps removing the clouds sometimes when I'm switching back and forth there. Oops, I'm in physics warp. What I've been trying to do is to slowly use little puffs of deceleration to manually increment by one and test and bring my landing site further and further and further back, closer to where we're actually trying to land. It's tedious, but it'll work eventually. And maybe this will be the magic number. Whoops. There we go. All right. Now let's watch what we get here. Now the last one or two have been really close. The deceleration has been enough to put me on dry land here, but I was landing too far away from the spot we need to get to. The spot we need to get to is like somewhere down around this area, and we were landing way out around that area. So, all right, let's ditch that, or at the very least, stage out of it. This is promising. This is promising. And if we slow down a little bit more, we'll pop our chutes. All right. Did anything important blow up there? I don't think we lost any landing legs. Oh, good. All right, we've got our chutes. Oh, this is real good. Okay, this actually might be it. All right, let's hope for the best. Let's hope for the best. Yeah, this is real close. All right. I think this one will be close enough to just run, to just hoof it there. I didn't keep some of the others where I landed like, 9 kilometers away, because while I could have just ran, even fast forwarded in Adobe, it would have just taken way too damn long. But this is good. This is like 1/3 the distance of the last one I got. So I think this is probably as good as I'm gonna get. And if I'm able to get a stable landing, I'll do Kraken Insurance, and I'll take this. I'll take this one. Yeah, the last one I got was like over on the other side of those mountains down near the beach. So this really is a pretty tedious sort of a thing. Precision landing through an atmosphere using, a heat shield and parachutes, not simple. But look how good the parachutes and everything worked. It's slowing our lander down to under 9 meters per second. This is going to be great. Look at that. Oh, amazing. Look at that. And this terrain is like perfect. All right, I'm gonna dare to F5 and Kraken Insurance and keep that. So now, if you remember, all right, so we're gonna do crew report, and we're gonna transfer our crew member down to the bottom, and we're gonna cheese it by getting out there. Oh yeah. Okay. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a run, I'm sure. And I'm going to time warp this a bit. But this will still be faster than any of the other attempts we've had. So, bear with me for a minute. I'm going to fast forward this. So, yeah, it took a while, but we are just about here, and we are about 3 kilometers away from our lander, which is a little bit of a trek, even on time warp. And what is this? Dost my eyes deceive me? It looks like we have found a big skeleton. Ooh. How neat is that? And we found a nice little bouquet of flowers. Whoop, and we can climb on top. So I'm going to plant the flag. Actually, you know, I'm like right. Yeah, all right. I'm on the object up there. I'm going to plant it here on the terrain. I'm going to do our EVA report. Take our surface sample. And plant our flag. And we'll call this Izmir 1. Only 3.2 kilometers away from our landing site. Not bad. So now we get the long trek back. I was kind of hoping I'd get the message would pop up about having found something interesting, but the it might have, like for the waypoint, but it might have an altitude set to it. So, oh well. All right. Well, I'm gonna fast forward again. I'll probably just clip here because it did take quite a while to run over. So I'll see you again in just a moment. All right. So we're just about back. And again, yeah. So we found our skeleton on Laythe. So now we're gonna use the cheese I alluded to before. Well, let's get this out of the way. We discovered a strange find with a story behind it on Laythe. Yes, we did. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to enter my capsule from the bottom. Now, this design does have one flaw. I forgot to put a science container up on the top stage. So transferring my science experiments is going to be an issue. So I've transferred my Kerbal back up to the top, but all of my science is still down here. So that sucks. So my surface sample and my EVA report are going to go away. Yeah, I don't think I can collect the science from here. And as soon as I stage, we're going to dump this lander can and it'll be out of the way. All right, but so I'm going to F5 for safety, do my Kraken insurance. Now, we should be ready to ascend. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Look at that. And we've got another moon that might be... I think that's Vol? Yeah. It's beautiful. We got Vol in the background. Oh, I love it. Sorry. Anyway. All right, so we're gonna take off, and this is going to be very similar to taking off from Kerbal. Our solid rocket boosters. Oh no. All right. Oh no. Let's ignore that. Ignore that. Yeah. So this design does work. It's worked many times in the past. Did I... I may have forgotten my aerodynamic fins when I was building this. So I may have to... I may have to do this the inefficient way. But that's fine. We have a fair amount of delta V. So I'm just going to go straight up, and then once I'm in space, I'll circularize. Alright, using some engine gimbal. Okay, good, good. Alright, we're fine. Yeah, check the apoapsis height. We're doing fine. So even with that snag, yeah, we're completely fine. Ignoring the minor issue we may have had on that first attempt. There was some interesting little attack of the Kraken there, but so now what we're gonna do, we're just gonna get this into orbit. And I'm going to zip over here and get it into a little bit more of a higher altitude orbit. Just so that we don't risk any weird like atmospheric drag when we're on time warp or any nonsense like that. I don't like to risk it. I play it safe. It's like, I know that doesn't normally happen, but you know, just in case. And we've still got some delta V, so that's how we take off from Eve, from Laythe. So now we got to get Talos X down there to pick up our crew member. And that's where things will get a little interesting. All right, so we've got Laythe as our... Oh, yeah, this orbit is terrible. Look at this. But again, the Talos X has delta V to spare. We're fine. And I'm just trying to make the most out of what's left in my nuclear stage here. Oh, we're in weird time warp loading hell. Alright, that's not too bad for... And yeah, when you know, sometimes when I do these kind of missions out, and I think I mentioned, sometimes when I do these missions out to Jewel, I'll use some aero braking. Very brief aero braking in Jewel's atmosphere, and I'll do like 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, orbits that'll just clip the outer edge of Jewel, and pull our apoapsis, you know, further and further down. That's extremely efficient, but it's dangerous, and you've got to build for it. All right, so now we're into our ion propulsion, and again, these burns are going to take a little while. So what I'm going to do is I am going to clip it here, and when we come back for the next episode, what I will have done is I will have gotten my Talos X into Laythe, picked up my, done the rendezvous, picked up my crew member, and then just gone back to Space Center, leaving Talos X in orbit around Laythe. And when we come back in the next episode, we will build our mission to Tilo, our one-way mission to Tilo, and launch it up and do the landing. And hopefully we'll have enough time. It might be a longer one, but we'll do the full mission because we've already got our recovery hardware and everything, or we will already have our recovery hardware here in orbit around Jool, and that'll save a considerable chunk of time in the video. So, as always, thanks for watching.